What are these white people really like, eh? You know, once to be not racist meant you didn't care what colour people were. Well, no longer. Now, to be not racist means judging people very much by the colour of their skin. And if their colour happens to be white, watch out. The new anti-racism, a new anti-white racism, is so explicit that it's become actually part of the teaching of the Smithsonian Institution. That's one of the world's most famous museums. Its National Museum of African American History in Washington has now made up a graphic listing what it claims are aspects and assumptions of whiteness and white culture in the United States. Now, of course, any idiot can already see that mistake number one of this stupid project is to link culture to race. Anyway, it's done that and says so-called white culture insists on wealth equals worth, rigid time schedules, win at all costs, master and control nature, aggressiveness, and majority rules when whites at least have power. Makes people, makes whites all sound like they're Nazis, you know, very hard people. You'd never think that Karl Marx, who didn't believe that, you know, wealth was value, was white. He himself was white. Oh, and by the way, this museum says that whites also subjugate their wives and think that hard work is the key to success. And bang, that's exactly where this racist exercise ran into trouble. I was joined a short while ago by Mark Latham, former federal Labor leader and now One Nation leader in the New South Wales Parliament, and a long-time critic of this idiotic identity politics. Mark Latham, thank you for joining me. Before I get to how this museum still managed to upset race warriors, first, the idea that there is a white culture, a culture predicated on race, and that it is shared by whites who came from Italy and whites from Germany and whites from Poland and whites from Spain. What do you make of this?
Well, you know, it's the central flaw of identity politics that doesn't treat people or even nations or even communities as separate, as individual, as worthy of their own examination, respect and treatment. It lumps people together, whole groups of people together. And for the Smithsonian to do this is a tragedy. I remember visiting Washington not that long ago and saying to my young children, look, you know, there's one place here you've got to have a look at. It's a great centre of higher learning, enlightenment and knowledge right around the world, the Smithsonian. It was set up nearly 200 years ago to increase and disperse advanced knowledge in American and other societies, and to see them now engaged in the intellectual activity of pretending that billions of people around the world are all the same because of their skin colour is just so primitive, so wrong, so counterproductive for the reputation of that institution, and at every level, in terms of decent analysis, intellectual content, fairness, scrutiny. This is all wrong. This is a betrayal completely of what a place like the Smithsonian, previously one of the highlights of Western civilization, is supposed to be about.
I just am agog to know what its summation of black culture and Asian culture, etc., will be. But anyway, the negative way that it framed this so-called white culture, or maybe we should say Western culture, which I think it really is what it's trying to get at, but making it now race, not a culture. It says, like, win at all costs, master and control nature, aggressiveness, majority rules where whites have power. How do you react to that kind of negative sort of portrayal?
Well, it's a document dripping with a sneering, condescending, negative attitude. But, you know, the bit that caught my eye is where they start to sneer at the idea of using the scientific method. That apparently, I don't know whether it's true or not, but apparently all white people are supposed to be attached to the scientific method. Well, hello, the Institute only exists because of the scientific method. Most of the things we have around us now, a TV, a house, transport, advanced society, information technology, It only exists because of the capacity of Western civilisation to use the scientific method for technological and other progress for all of the humankind. And I don't think anyone, whatever their skin colour was when they're inventing these things under the scientific method, thought, oh, this is just for white people. You know, these things were done in history, Andrew, for all of humankind to benefit. And what a tragedy that it ever got to the point where there was an assumption that that wouldn't be the case today. I mean, scientific method is at the core of why the Smithsonian exists, why all of us can lead a better life, you know, a lot better than living in a mud hut, freezing at night, wondering, you know, which animal can you catch the next day to feed your kids. I mean, you know, we've got to understand the nature of the progress, and to sneer at it now, and something as wonderful as the scientific method is just so appalling. It's sort of unspeakable.
No, but when you touch on the scientific method, in fact, you actually go to where this whole exercise went wrong, even for the race warriors, because it also said, oh, you know, these whites believe in hard work and time schedules and looking after their nuclear family. And now the black activists are complaining, what, you mean you're saying that we don't believe in hard work and we don't keep appointments on time and we don't believe in the scientific method? Or what, you're saying we're primitive? I mean, I think it's suddenly sprung a leak. This is another example, I guess, of the Cultural Revolution eating its own.
True, and it's betraying its own people, because the work ethic, of course, is a universal human value that advances people. You have lots of opportunities. Governments can spend a lot of money on you, but if you don't work hard, study hard at school, get a job, work hard, of course there'll be no progress for you and your family. So the work ethic is not something that is particular to one skin colour. The whole notion of that is just so ridiculous. The work ethic is should be promoted as a universal human value that advances all societies in all parts of the world for all skin colours. And it just happens to be a matter of history that the Protestant work ethic coming out of Northern European countries was one of the drivers of the Industrial Revolution. But what a great thing for all people. Every single non-white person, I mean, it's silly to have to be saying this, but every single non-white, non-European person using a car, an aeroplane, a computer, a house, something that entertains them and their children and advanced education materials, is a beneficiary of that aspect of history. But it was never devised to hurt people. It was supposed to help everyone and should always be accepted in that spirit. Mark,
and this is not a million miles from this topic. You've come across a post by Prashant Paramanathan, who's head of Chuff.org, which is a crowdfunding organisation for social causes of the left, complaining that white supremacy and structural racism is rife in Australia and is being promoted by the Ramsay Foundation, which is trying to fund courses in Western civilisation. Do you share this man's outrage?
No, not at all. And I've got to wonder why Prashant, himself a dual graduate of the University of New South Wales, a beneficiary of the benefits of Western civilisation, why he would turn against that ideal. It just seems to me to be wrong and opportunistic to be the beneficiary of a university education. I mean, the university is one of the great pillars, one of the magnificent inventions intellectually of Western civilisation. To have those degrees, all those opportunities that come from it in life, and then turn against the Ramsay Foundation for wanting other universities to understand the benefits of Western civilisation, or students to understand where these good things have come from. Why is that a bad thing? I mean, you know, again, these are values, Andrew, that should be universal in our society and its politics. There are certain things that are known to advance society, people of all skin colour, all background, all ethnic complexion, and we should hold those things high in total community honour and regard to say everyone can benefit.
Mate, I don't know what's becoming of the world, but I don't think it's turning in the right direction at the moment. Mark Latham, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. We live in hope.